Now the question would be, what about the big three? You know, we have Pernod, we have Diageo, we have Bacardi, we have William Grant & Sons, big four, man. Campari, Jim Beam, you know, the big 5, 6.
It's a sort of plug and play formula. Get influencers, do this, put your logo everywhere, and...
But what would be the, because obviously in every country there is an average salary and it's usually reflected by the living costs.
£350 a month.
£350 a month. Right. Hello and welcome back to Bar Talks. I am joined here today by Priyanka. She's the chairman of the 50 Best Bars for South Asia, as well as being the global brand strategist for Hapusa Gin, which is an Indian gin produced in the south in a place called Goa. Other than that, she also runs Dramatic, which is a platform that she set up as a hobby a couple of years ago. And now it's like a guide to drinking and eating and having a great time all over the world in our wonderful industry. What I find very interesting is that because of Priyanka's experience all over the world, as well as her specific, unique perspective and her no bullshit attitude, she cuts out through a lot of the fluff, but is also very polite about it. She's a polite fluff cutter. How do you even become chairman? How do you? This is probably a big shout out to 50 Best, picking the right people, because you know how does that organization find someone who's got these sort of noble values and noble goals, I guess?
I feel like I've won like the Nobel Prize.
Kill them with kindness.
I didn't actually do anything that I wasn't, it was all just me being normal, doing what I had to do with a single-minded agenda of just putting the word out about good drinks and, you know, really sort of put the spotlight on good people doing good work in the beverage industry. My biggest problem, which is like when I started this whole thing, was when I noticed that chefs got a lot of attention in a country like India.
Okay.
Or in the world in general, like chefs got a lot of attention for what they did. They were always celebrated and, you know, treated with a certain amount of respect. And it's only in recent times that bartenders have got that respect, right? And as someone who enjoys going to a bar and sitting across the bar, talking to a bartender, I always wondered why nobody says, you know, I'd love to meet the bartender who created this drink.
Yeah.
And I come to this whole industry as a consumer. I was never sort of already in the trade. I mean, everybody starts somewhere, of course, but my whole idea was to flip that conversation. As a consumer, I wanted other people like me to show more interest in the people making their drinks and what went into it. And I guess I did something right. I don't know. I guess I just did what I had to do without any real agenda outside of that. So
yeah. Let's cut straight to the chase. Why is India not represented more in the international bar community? What is going on? What is going on?
I guess that's one of the main reasons people like I have been put in the region to be chairs, right? Because of the underrepresentation. That's exactly what we're trying to change. So I think earlier the problem was maybe we didn't have enough representation from all the different countries around India. When you look at India, you look at the subcontinent. Subcontinent consists of Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, etc., Nepal. Pakistan, of course, doesn't have alcohol and all of that. But I think one of the main reasons we were underrepresented is because there were very few of us actually taking the word out there. So now with people like me, Vikramachanta, Young Diploma, Meenakshi, the whole crew sort of making more noise about us, we're getting more of the global attention. Helps that people like you come and visit us, because that always helps you take back the good word about us to, you know, wherever you come from.
And what do you think, you know, people have been coming to India, brands have been invested into India, I've heard about it, but for some reason in the last 5 years, I don't know anyone who's made that trip. And like, is there any reason why? Do you think, like, is it because we're ignorant? You're on the way, it's not like you're a difficult place to go to.
And we're very much a part of Asia.
Right.
So, I don't know, actually, this is something that we think about a lot, and I guess we've spoken about as well. And I think it's not just India, but countries like the UAE, like Russia, have a similar problem where they don't really fit into any geographic landscape in the broader sense. And so India, for the longest time, was India. But most people forgot that India is also a part of Asia. So when the conversation in hospitality happens about Asia, it's only recently that India started getting included in that conversation, which is weird, and I've never been able to figure out why. But I think that's because India's cocktail culture itself has taken so long to come to this point, where there's actually things happening. There's actually, world-class bars and bartenders coming out of India. So now it's slowly beginning to be included in that conversation, but it's still a bit of a gray area. I still feel like when, say, someone in New York thinks about Asia, they do think about Far East Asia. They don't really think about India. They think about India as India.
I guess, what do you think about the sort of dichotomy or the contrasts between what's happening there and what's happening here? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I think the gender conversation is one that continues to happen in parallel, and I guess whether it's in the West or in India, it has to happen. I think more so in a place like India, where safety in certain places, in certain parts of India, is still an issue of concern. In fact, interesting story, I was chatting with a female bartender last night who is actually leaving the country to move to Dubai.
Right.
And I think she felt like she owed me an explanation as to why she was deserting us. And one of the main things she pointed out to me, which is really interesting, and I hope that bar owners, bar managers, hotel, GMs realize that safety is a prime concern. She was telling me that it's hard for women to be behind the bar, and that's why there aren't more female bartenders unless it's in a hotel, because standalone bars don't take care of their transport back. And if they end their shift at 2 a.m., how are they going to get home? So these are real challenges, right? So the second thing, and that's a huge difference I've noticed between bars in the West, standalone bars in the West, actually even hotel bars, hierarchy. And I think it really comes in the way of a good bartender fulfilling his potential, because he always has to run things by several other people. There's lots of sort of red tape and roadblocks, etc. And I think it comes from a more sort of administrative trust issues. Do they think, he's ready, or he or she is ready, etc. And I feel like there are certain bartenders I see in the country who are definitely there, who are capable of making great decisions for the beverage program, for hiring, for how the bar works, music, the lighting, everything, but they're not given a free rein. So I think that's something that I've noticed is very different in bars in the West, bars in Singapore, for instance, where I feel like the bartender has more control over how he or she runs the bar.
I think everything comes in waves. And is this like the moment where India is going to be like lifting its head up and striking the iron while it's hot, if that makes sense?
Yeah, we should be. We should be, and if people are not thinking along those lines, I think it's time to start, because literally this was our opportunity to wipe the slate clean if we had to, and sort of start rewriting how we sort of approach things. What do we want out of this? Why do we have this bar? Is it purely a revenue source, or is it something that I want to take out to the world and be proud of? So this would have been our opportunity to really create something that we wanted, because we had this window where things were kind of slow. And if they haven't, then I really hope they do.
And what's your opinion on this idea of you have to leave a country and be successful somewhere else in order to get respect? I've noticed this conversation pop up here in India, but I've also heard it in Russia. I've heard it in Spain. I've heard it not in Italy. They're just too proud.
There's this element of feeling undervalued and underappreciated until you go out and really prove yourself. Like, you have to really prove yourself, come back, and someone has to think, oh, he or she must be good enough, otherwise why would XYZ in so-and-so cool country hire them?
Yeah.
She was.
A business that doesn't know you as well as your home country, in a country that doesn't speak your language,
it's an element of also taking people for granted. Like,
That's
you take your
crazy.
own people for granted to some extent. You just sort of just normalize that kind of, behavior.
But what would be the, because obviously in every country there is an average salary, and it's usually reflected by the living costs. And every city's different, and so I'm not sitting there to try and say, oh, look, the salary here is whatever the hell it is. Oh, it's so much smaller compared to London, because, for example, in London, you would have to pay £1,300 for a room.
So talking about these things, you would think the salaries in the city would keep up with the cost of living in that city, but it really doesn't. And I've seen, like, in general, the salaries that the head bartender gets, and I'm not pointing figures at anyone in particular, but
Yeah.
I heard recently that the head bartender of a pretty good cocktail bar here was getting paid £350 a month.
£350 a month. Right. There you go.
But at the same time, I heard another bartender who might or might not have done some time abroad is getting paid an at par sort of salary. So again, it brings me back to the same thing. But this person is doing an equally good job just because he or she has always been here means you're just paying them like shit.
So this is what I wanted to sort of, I see the going, like we've pretty much covered everything, but there's two things that I think that people need to understand that I think will hit them hard is A, the drinking laws.
18 is normal. 18 is normal. Delhi has always been weird about this. It's been 21, 23, now 25. I don't want to get in any trouble here, but I think it has to do with also the cultural response to alcohol and how it triggers certain behaviors.
And what is that mean?
And things have gone pretty badly in certain parts of northern India, triggered by alcohol.
Right, so people went
it's
crazy.
A sense of responsibility, you know, whether it was safety of people around them, etc., etc. So I think rules keep changing based on how ready they think people are.
So I was going to move into that is that obviously whenever we talk about brands, we can talk about independent brands and they have so much of their own problems and based on what I hear about it, you know, India's layers of issues and barriers, independent brands here, I applaud every single independent brand that's or startup or whatever who's trying to do something and foster a community. Now the question would be, what about the big three? You know, we have Pernod, we have Diageo, we have Bacardi, we have William Grant & Sons, big four, man. Campari, Jim Beam, you know, the big 5, 6. How's that been going? You know, because like you just said, maybe they can help, but do they?
I mean, every brand has a marketing budget. When it comes to international brands present in India, I'm sure they have a budget that has been decided locally and then, you know, the headquarters wherever in Belgium or whatever sitting there and approving of a marketing plan. That marketing plan is like a blank canvas, right? What do you do with that marketing plan? In my experience, I have seen, and this has been going on for the last 5-10 years, it's a sort of plug and play formula. Get influencers, do this, put your logo everywhere, and you spend your marketing budget, great. But I don't know how that's helping us get the word out about what we're doing. How that's helping us actually tell people like you in, you know, Barcelona or people like whoever in London about what we're doing. You're never hearing about it because these influencers are continuously influencing the same circle of people. They're just there, adding to the numbers, adding to the likes, doing influencer things.
Ticking the boxes.
Yeah, and I don't think that is the best or most effective use of a brand's budget.
You know, it's funny because probably the person sitting in Belgium writing the brand plan is like, yeah, guest shifts are boring.
Yeah.
Having no clue what's going on in a part of the other part of the world.
Yeah, again, I mean, that itself, again, is such a blanket statement. Guest shifts are done, guest shifts are boring. I feel like in certain cultures, maybe. But in India, it's just sort of picking up now, and it does have an impact. We also need to sort of ask, I mean, who's the guest shift for?
India.
Who is it for? Like, I think a guest shift may be boring to bartenders or, you know, bartenders who've been to way too many guest shifts in their lifetime. But for the consumer, I mean, for the consumer, it's great to have someone like you, like where they're going to go and have your drinks. And if they don't plan to in the next 5 years, you've come to them to make their drinks. And that's a great, I mean, I'd be honored if I tried, you know, drinks or food by a chef who I probably haven't been able to visit or have no plans of visiting, but I've heard so much about.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
If you could pick one person or one bar, or is this something you would really wish to happen, what would it be in terms of for India?
I guess anybody who is willing to share is not just going to come here feeling like, oh, I'm a celebrity and I've been invited to India, so I'm just going to go behave like a princess. Somebody who's actually willing to engage with the community and share, and also take back something from here to share with his or her people back home.
The world is great. You should come to India. You probably learn more here than any other part of the world. And Priyanka is the person who you need to contact if you do choose to come or you want to come. This is the perfect person. This has been Bar Talks. Signing out. Peace.
Thank you.